My name is Emily Carter. I am 31 years old. The first time my mother left me alone, she called it a vacation. She said it like it was a favor, like I was getting space, like she deserved a break. I was 9 years old, standing in our small Phoenix apartment, watching her slide a $5 bill across the kitchen counter. The counter had a burn mark shaped like a half moon. I used to trace it with my finger when I was nervous. She didn't sit down. She didn't look at me for long. "This is just in case," she said. "In case of what was never clear." She kissed the air near my cheek, grabbed her purse, and told me she'd be back soon. Soon wasn't a day. It wasn't a number. It wasn't written anywhere. The door closed. The lock clicked. Her footsteps faded down the walkway. I stood there longer than I want to admit, staring at the counter like the money might explain itself. They claimed it was just a vacation, but it was abandonment. I didn't know that word yet. I just knew the apartment felt bigger, louder, wrong. Before that day, my life had a routine. I woke up early because my mom liked quiet mornings. I poured cereal, careful not to spill milk because she hated waste. I waited for her to get dressed, keys jangling, perfume sharp in the air. I was good at staying out of the way. That was my job. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for extras. I learned how to read moods like weather. That morning, she moved fast. Too fast. She tossed clothes into a small suitcase. She checked her phone twice. She told me not to open the door for anyone. "You're mature for your age," she said, already halfway out. That sentence followed me for years. After she left, I did what I always did. I tried to be normal. I put the $5 bill in my shorts pocket so it wouldn't get lost. I turned on the TV low. I ate a slice of white bread because the fridge was mostly empty. The air conditioner rattled like it was struggling to breathe. I waited for the phone to ring. It didn't. That night, the sun dropped fast. Phoenix does that. 1 minute the light is everywhere, the next it's gone. I locked the door because she told me to. I dragged a chair into the kitchen so I could reach the cabinet where the flashlight was kept. The batteries were weak. The beam flickered. I slept on top of my bed, fully dressed, shoes by the door. It just felt safer. In the morning, I went to school. I folded the $5 bill smaller and smaller until it fit inside my sock. At school, everything felt louder. The bell, the kids, the scrape of chairs. When it was time for lunch, I stood in line and handed over my card like always. The screen beeped red. The lunch lady frowned and tried again. Then she leaned closer to the monitor. "Honey," she said quietly, "did your mom forget to reload this?" I shrugged because shrugging was easier than explaining. She let me through anyway. I took the tray and sat at my usual table, picking at the food. I didn't tell anyone my mom was gone. Not that day. That afternoon, I walked home alone. The heat pressed down on my shoulders. The asphalt smelled sharp. When I unlocked the door, the apartment was exactly the same. No note. No message. No sound. I checked the phone. It was unplugged. I plugged it back in and sat on the floor, back against the cabinet, watching it like it might move on its own. I didn't cry. I remember that clearly. Crying felt like something you did when someone was there to hear it. The next day, my teacher asked why my homework wasn't signed. I said my mom was busy. The day after that, the school counselor called me into her office. Her room smelled like peppermint. She had a small plant on the windowsill that leaned toward the light. She asked me who made dinner at home. I said sometimes my mom did. She asked where my mom was that week. I said she was on vacation. The counselor paused. She looked at me longer than most adults did. That afternoon, when I got home, Mrs. Alvarez from next door was waiting in the hallway. She had gray hair pulled tight and always smelled like soap. She held a grocery bag. "Your mom hasn't been around," she said, not accusing, just stating it. "She's traveling," I told her, repeating the word carefully. Mrs. Alvarez nodded, but her eyes stayed worried. She handed me the bag. Inside was a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. "Just in case," she said. That phrase again. By the end of the week, the $5 was gone. I counted the days by the cartoons on TV. I marked them with my fingernail on the edge of the coffee table, tiny lines I thought no one would see. On the sixth day, there was a knock at the door. Not a neighbor knock, not a friendly one. This was firm, official. I froze in the kitchen, heart pounding so hard I thought it might make noise. The knock came again. I didn't answer. Then I heard my name. That was when everything shifted. The knock came again, slower this time. Emily, a woman's voice said. Calm, not loud, like she didn't want to scare me. I stood there holding the edge of the counter. My fingers were sticky from peanut butter. I wiped them on my shorts without thinking. I didn't know the rules for this situation. My mom had said not to open the door for anyone. She hadn't said what to do if they knew my name. I took one step toward the door, then another. The peephole was smudged, but I could make out two shapes. A woman in a light blouse. A man standing a little behind her, holding a folder. Emily, the woman said again. I'm Mark. This is Sarah. We're here to make sure you're okay. Okay was a strange word. It sounded like a test. I unlocked the door because I was 9, and because adults with calm voices felt like rules. The woman crouched down, so we were eye level. She smiled, but not the way people smile in photos. This was careful. Is your mom home? She asked. I shook my head. When was the last time you saw her? I thought about the suitcase, the $5 bill, the burn mark on the counter. Last week, I said. It felt like lying even though it wasn't. They looked at each other. Just a flicker. The man asked if they could come in. I stepped aside because I didn't know how not to. They didn't sit right away. They looked around first. The empty sink, the unplugged phone, the fridge when Sarah opened it and tried not to react. She asked where I slept, what I ate, who checked on me. I answered carefully. Short sentences. The way you do when you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. They asked if I knew when my mom was coming back. I said no. That was when Sarah sighed. Not dramatically. Just enough. We're going to make sure you're safe, she said. I nodded because nodding was automatic. Mark took out the folder. Inside were papers with my name on them. Seeing my name in print made my stomach drop. He asked if I had clothes packed. I looked at my bedroom. At the school backpack on the floor. At the tiny lines I'd scratched into the coffee table. I can pack, I said quickly. You don't need to, Sarah said. Just grab what you want for tonight. Tonight. That word landed hard. I went to my room and shoved clothes into my backpack. I took my toothbrush. I took the $5 bill, even though it was gone. I took my school picture, because I didn't know what else mattered. Mrs. Alvarez was in the hallway when we walked out. She pressed her lips together when she saw the folder. She touched my shoulder. You'll be okay, she said. I'll call your aunt. I didn't know she had my aunt's number. The car smelled like vinyl and something sweet. Air freshener. I sat in the back seat with my backpack on my lap like it might disappear. No one played music. They took me to an office with beige walls and a water cooler that hummed. Sarah gave me a paper cup and told me I could have as much water as I wanted. She asked the same questions again. Where was my mom? Did she leave money? Did anyone check on me? I told her about the $5. Her mouth tightened, just for a second. They let me call my Aunt Rachel. She answered on the third ring, breathless. Emily? She said. What's wrong? I told her I was with some people. I told her my mom was on vacation. There was a pause. A long one. I'll be there, she said. Just stay where you are. They drove me to her house that night. Aunt Rachel's place smelled like laundry detergent and candles. She hugged me too tight, like she was trying to make up for something. She made spaghetti. She asked if I was hungry even though I was already eating. That night, I slept on her couch with a blanket that had little pills on it. Cartoon pills. It was supposed to be funny. I stared at the ceiling and tried to count how many days it had been. The next morning, Mark came by. He talked to my aunt in the kitchen with their voices low. I caught words like report and unreachable and timeline. My aunt kept saying she hadn't known. She said it like an apology and a defense at the same time. At school, my desk was empty for 2 days. When I came back, the counselor pulled me aside. She asked if I was okay. She said she was glad I was safe. Safe was becoming another test word. By the end of the week, my mom still hadn't called. Mark told me they'd tried her phone, her work, her friend's place. She'll turn up, he said. They usually do. Usually. On the 10th day, I was doing homework at my aunt's kitchen table when the phone rang. My aunt answered. Her face changed immediately. She covered the receiver and looked at me. "It's your mom," she said quietly. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. She handed me the phone. "Where are you?" my mom said. Not hello. Not are you okay. Just that. "I'm with Aunt Rachel," I said. There was a sharp breath on the other end. "What do you mean?" she said. I was only gone a little while. I didn't know how to explain time to someone who hadn't counted it. She said there had been a misunderstanding. She said people were overreacting. She said she was coming home. When the call ended, my hands were shaking. Mark came the next day with papers. He explained that things wouldn't just go back to normal. "There are steps now," he said. That night, my aunt told me my mom was flying back. "She's upset," my aunt said. It was no time. I stared at the calendar on the fridge. The days were crossed off in red marker. My mom was coming back, and nothing was going to be the same. My mom landed 2 days later. I didn't go to the airport. That wasn't an option. Mark explained it in a voice that sounded practiced, like he'd said it many times before. "She'll meet with us first," he said. "Then we'll decide next steps." Next steps sounded like something adults said when they didn't want to say consequences. I stayed home from school that day. Aunt Rachel said it was better that way. She kept busy, wiping a counter that was already clean, adjusting a stack of mail that didn't need straightening. I sat at the kitchen table with my homework open but unread. My pencil rolled back and forth under my fingers. Around noon, my aunt's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "She's mad," she said, like that explained everything. When Mark came by that afternoon, he wasn't alone. There was another woman with him this time. Older. They sat at the table. I stayed where I was, backpack at my feet, like I might be leaving again at any moment. Mark explained that my mom had arrived furious. "She says she left you with money," he said gently. I looked down at my hands. "She says she checked in," the other woman added. "That you were fine." I thought of the unplugged phone, the empty fridge, the $5 bill folded thin enough to disappear. "They always say that," Mark said. Not to me, just into the room. He asked if I wanted to tell my side again. I nodded. I told them the same things: the suitcase, the counter, the days. This time, the other woman wrote while I talked. Her pen scratched steadily. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she closed the folder. "We'll need to document this," she said. "School records, neighbor statements, timelines, action. What if 24 pass?" Documentation felt heavy, like something permanent. That night, my mom called again. She didn't ask how I was. She asked when I was coming home. "I am home," I said, meaning my aunt's kitchen, the smell of spaghetti sauce still lingering in the air. "That's not your home," she snapped. "I'm your mother." The word hung there, like it was supposed to fix everything. She said she'd only been gone a few days. She said people were exaggerating. She said she deserved a break. "You know how hard things have been," she said, her voice turning soft in a way I recognized. I said nothing. Silence was the only thing I had learned to do well. After the call, my aunt sat beside me on the couch. She didn't say my mom was trying her best. She didn't say I should understand. "She shouldn't have left you," she said instead. It felt strange to hear an adult say that out loud. The next morning, I went back to school. The counselor met me at the door and walked me to her office. She had papers on her desk this time. My name was printed at the top. She asked if my mom had come back. I said yes. She asked if I felt safe going home. I didn't answer right away. "I don't know," I said finally. That was enough. By the end of the week, the school had sent records, attendance logs, notes from teachers, lunch account history. Mark showed me a few pages later, sitting at the same kitchen table where I'd done my homework. "See," he said, pointing. "This helps." It was strange, seeing my life turned into check marks and dates. My mom called every day. Her tone changed depending on the day. Angry, tearful, reasonable, accusing. She told me people were turning me against her. She told me I was embarrassing her. She told me she'd never forgive my aunt for this. I started letting the calls go to voicemail. When the messages stacked up, Mark asked if I wanted him to listen first. I nodded. He listened with his head tilted, one hand covering his mouth. "She's not helping herself," he said quietly. A meeting was scheduled. They said it would be at the airport because my mom insisted on it. She said she wanted to pick me up. She said it was her right. The word airport made my chest tighten. Mark explained there would be security nearby, that I wouldn't be alone. I packed my backpack again. The same one. Different reasons. This time, I didn't scratch lines into furniture. I just waited. The airport was louder than I remembered. Rolling suitcases. Beeping carts. Voices echoing off the high ceiling. Everything sounded like it was in a hurry. Mark walked beside me. Sarah was there too. She held a thin folder under her arm, her grip tight like she didn't trust the papers to stay put. I kept my backpack on even though it was heavy. The straps dug into my shoulders, but I didn't loosen them. My mom was already there. I saw her before she saw me. She stood near the arrival doors, arms crossed, foot tapping. Her hair was done, makeup perfect, like she was going out, not picking up the kid she'd left alone. When she spotted me, her face changed fast. Relief first, then anger. "There you are," she said loudly, stepping forward. People nearby glanced over. A man pulling a suitcase slowed down. A woman with a coffee paused mid-sip. My mom reached for me. Mark stepped between us. "Let's slow this down," he said. She stared at him like he'd insulted her. "This is my daughter," she said. "You don't get to keep her from me." Her voice carried. I felt it press against my chest. Sarah opened the folder. She didn't rush. She didn't raise her voice. "We need to talk," she said. My mom laughed. A sharp sound. "Talk?" "I went on vacation. That's not a crime." Two-way. People were definitely listening now. A TSA agent shifted closer. "Not obvious, just enough." "You left a 9-year-old alone," Sarah said. Calm, flat. "I left her money," my mom shot back. "I checked in." I felt something snap then. Not loud, just final. Mark held out a few pages. School records. Dates highlighted. Missed calls logged. "These show otherwise," he said. My mom looked at the papers like they were fake, like if she didn't touch them, they wouldn't exist. "This is ridiculous," she said. "She's fine. Look at her." She pointed at me like I was proof. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't reach for her. That seemed to confuse her more than anything else. Sarah spoke again. "There will be a temporary placement," she said, "until we determine." "No," my mom said, loud enough that the TSA agent fully turned now. "You don't get to do this," she said. "She's coming home with me." "She already has a placement," Mark said. "With family." My mom's face went red. She looked at me then, really looked. "You did this," she said. "You told them lies." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. "I told them what happened," I said. It was the first time I'd said it out loud in public. The silence after that felt thick. A woman nearby shook her head slightly. I don't know if she meant for me or my mom. My mom's voice dropped. "Emily," she said, softer. "Come on, let's go." I didn't step forward. Sarah closed the folder. "This conversation is over," she said. Security took a step closer. Not touching, just present. My mom laughed again, but this time it sounded shaky. "You're making a mistake," she said. "To everyone and no one." Mark guided me away. I didn't look back. In the car, my hands were shaking. I pressed them between my knees to make them stop. No one spoke until we were on the highway. "That was hard," Sarah said quietly. I watched the airport disappear in the side mirror. I didn't feel brave or strong. I felt done. The house felt quieter after the airport. Not peaceful, just muted, like the volume had been turned down on everything. Aunt Rachel let me keep the backpack on the kitchen chair. She didn't ask me to unpack it right away. That mattered more than I knew how to explain. Mark came by the next morning with more papers. He spread them out on the table, smoothing the corners like they might curl up and run. "This is temporary," he said, looking at me. "Not my aunt, but temporary can last a while." A while was a word I was starting to understand too well. He explained where I would stay, what school I'd go to, who would make decisions for now. He didn't say my mom's name unless he had to. "She's upset," he said carefully. "She's telling people her side." "What side is that?" I asked before I could stop myself. Mark hesitated. "That she went on vacation, that everyone overreacted." I nodded. That sounded right. The placement paperwork was signed that afternoon. Aunt Rachel's handwriting shook a little when she wrote her name. Mine was small and crooked in the space they pointed to. I asked if my mom would stop calling. "Not right away," Mark said. "But you don't have to answer." That night, the phone rang twice, then 3 times. I watched it from the couch, my fingers curled into the edge of the blanket. When it stopped, there was a voicemail. Aunt Rachel asked if I wanted to listen. I shook my head. She didn't push. School changed fast. My teacher started checking in with me more. Not obviously, just small things. Asking if I'd eaten, asking if I needed help with homework. At lunch, my card worked again. The green light beeped. I stared at it longer than I needed to. The counselor met with me every few days. She had a new notebook just for me. She asked how it felt not going home. I said I didn't know. That was still my safest answer. My mom kept leaving messages. Some were angry. Some were crying. Some pretended nothing was wrong. One said she was coming to get me whether they liked it or not. Mark listened to that one twice. "That won't happen," he said, but his jaw was tight when he said it. A week passed. Then, another. The days stopped feeling like waiting for her to come back and started feeling like something else, like learning new rules. I learned where Aunt Rachel kept the extra towels. I learned her coffee routine. I learned which floorboards squeaked. She learned that I liked the crust cut off my sandwiches. She learned I woke up early no matter what. One afternoon, Mark came by with an update. "They're extending the placement," he said. "There's a review process." My stomach dropped, even though part of me had expected it. "Does that mean I can't go back?" I asked. "It means we're being careful," he said. Careful felt like relief and loss at the same time. That night, my mom sent a long email. Aunt Rachel printed it instead of letting me read it on the screen. She said it was easier that way. It was full of words like misunderstanding and betrayal, and family sticks together. At the bottom, she wrote, "I'm still your mother." I folded the paper once. Then again. Then I handed it back. "I don't want to keep these," I said. Aunt Rachel nodded and put it in a drawer. That was the first thing I refused. The explanation came on a Tuesday. That's the detail I remember, because Tuesdays used to mean spelling tests and chicken nuggets, not meetings about where I would live. Mark arrived in the late afternoon. He didn't bring Sarah this time. He brought a legal pad instead, folded in half, with my name written at the top. We sat at the kitchen table. Aunt Rachel stayed by the sink, pretending to dry a mug that was already dry. "Okay," Mark said, resting his palms on the table. "I want to explain what's actually happening." "Actually" was a word adults used when they thought kids couldn't handle before. He talked about responsibility, about supervision, about what was considered reasonable. He didn't say neglect right away. He said left without an appropriate caregiver. That sounded softer, but it meant the same thing. "She didn't tell anyone where she was going," he said. "She didn't leave contact information. She didn't arrange for food, money, or supervision." I stared at the corner of the table. There was a small chip in the wood, shaped like a triangle. "She says she left money," he continued. I nodded. $5. Mark wrote it down. The pen scratched loudly. "She says she checked in." I shook my head. The phone was unplugged. Another note. She says it was just for a few days. I thought about the lines. I'd scratched into the coffee table. I'd counted 10 before I stopped. It was longer, I said. Mark closed the pad. This is why the placement is continuing, he said. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. Choice was the word that finally made it make sense. That night, I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling fan. It clicked softly with each rotation. I tried to remember if my mom had ever packed food for me before she left. I couldn't. I tried to remember if she'd ever written anything down. A note. A plan. I couldn't. I had always filled in the gaps for her without realizing that's what I was doing. The next day at school, the counselor asked if I wanted to draw. I drew the apartment, the kitchen counter, the $5 bill. She didn't comment. She just nodded and wrote something in her notebook. Later that week, Mark brought a calendar. He placed it on the table and pointed to the dates. From here, he said, tapping the first day my mom left, to here. It was longer than she'd said. Longer than she'd admitted. She could have come back sooner, he said. She chose not to. I felt something loosen in my chest when he said that. It wasn't my fault for not being loud enough. Or scared enough. Or younger. She had chosen. My mom called that night. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Why are you doing this to me?" Then another, "You're ruining everything." Aunt Rachel watched me read the messages. She didn't take the phone away. "Do you want to respond?" she asked. I thought about it. About what I could say that wouldn't be twisted later. "No," I said. That felt bigger than refusing the email. A few days later, Mark came by again. This time, he brought a thin packet clipped together. "This is the school file," he said. "Attendance, lunch account, counselor notes." He slid it toward me. I didn't touch it. "You don't have to read it," he said. "But it exists." That mattered too. My mom's calls changed tone again. Now she was apologetic. She said she hadn't realized how serious it would get. She said she trusted me. She said she thought I was mature. That sentence again. I told Mark about the messages. He added them to the file. "She keeps saying she trusted me," I said. Mark looked up. "Trust doesn't replace responsibility," he said. That line stayed with me. One evening, Aunt Rachel found me standing in the hallway, listening to a voicemail play through the door. I hadn't realized I'd left it on speaker. My mom's voice filled the space, crying, saying my name over and over. Aunt Rachel gently took the phone and turned it off. "You don't have to listen to that," she said. "I know," I said. I just wanted to hear if she'd say something different. She never did. At the end of the second week, Mark sat down with us again. "They want to move toward a longer-term arrangement," he said. "There will be reviews, meetings, more paperwork." He looked at me. "This isn't punishment, it's protection." Protection was a word I hadn't known I needed. That night, as I was brushing my teeth with the spare toothbrush that had become mine, the phone rang. Not my mom's number. Unknown. Aunt Rachel answered. She listened. Her face went still. She covered the receiver and looked at me. "She's at the airport again," she said, "and she's asking for you." I didn't go back to the airport. That decision wasn't mine alone. But Mark made sure I understood it. "She doesn't get to demand access," he said, sitting across from me at the table. I traced the edge of my notebook while he talked. The paper was soft from being erased too many times. "She's upset," Aunt Rachel said carefully. "She feels shut out." I didn't say anything. Being shut out sounded familiar. Mark explained that my mom had shown up without warning. Again. She'd asked for me by name. She'd said she was my mother like it was a password. "She's pushing," he said, "which is why we're not giving in." Instead of the airport, the meeting would be in an office. Neutral ground, cameras, rules. I stayed home from school again. My teacher sent work with a note that said, "Take your time." That afternoon, Mark called with an update. "She's denying everything," he said. "She says the school is exaggerating. She says the neighbor misunderstood. She says you're confused." Confused. That word made my hands curl into fists. She asked if she could see the file, he added. And, I said, already knowing. And we showed it to her. I pictured the packet, the attendance logs, the lunch account records, the counselor notes. The dates lined up in a way that didn't leave room for opinions. She didn't like that, he said. That night, my mom left a voicemail that was different. Not angry, not crying, controlled. She said she'd spoken to a lawyer. She said people were overstepping. She said this would all be sorted out soon. I listened to it once, then I deleted it. That was the first voicemail I erased without asking. A few days later, Mark came by with the folder. The actual one. Thick, heavy, rubber band around it. This is what we use in the review, he said. I want you to know what's in it. I wad. He didn't open it all the way, just enough for me to see the tabs. School, welfare check, neighbor statement, phone records. It's not about punishing her, he said. It's about showing a pattern. Pattern was another adult word that made sense immediately. She keeps saying she trusted you, I said. Mark nodded. That's in here too. He pointed to a page. That's part of it. I didn't ask him to explain. The review date was set. My mom would be there. I wouldn't. She wants you present, Mark said. But that's not appropriate. Appropriate felt like a shield. The morning of the review, Aunt Rachel made pancakes even though it wasn't a weekend. She flipped them too early. They were pale and uneven. We ate anyway. Around noon, the phone rang. Mark's number. It's done, he said. The placement continues. I waited for the rest. The argument. The condition. She didn't take it well, he added. Of course she didn't. That evening, my mom showed up at Aunt Rachel's house. No call. No warning. Just a knock. Hard. I froze on the couch. The sound went straight through me. Aunt Rachel stood up slowly. She looked at me first. Stay here, she said. The knock came again. My name followed it. The knock didn't stop. It came again, louder, like the door itself had done something wrong. Emily, my mom called through the wood. I know you're in there. Aunt Rachel didn't answer right away. She stood with her hand on the doorframe, breathing slow, like she was counting. I'm calling Mark, she said quietly. Don't, my mom snapped from the other side. This is between me and my daughter. I slid off the couch and backed into the hallway without thinking. My shoulder hit the wall. The paint was cool through my shirt. The knock turned into a bang. Open the door, she said. You don't get to keep her from me. Tennis. Aunt Rachel opened it just enough to step outside and close it behind her. I couldn't see them, but I could hear everything. You need to leave, my aunt said. Her voice was steady, but thin. You can't do this, my mom said. I went away for a few days. That's it. You left her alone, my aunt replied. I left her money. $5 echoed in my head like a joke that wasn't funny. You always hated me, my mom said. You always wanted this. I pressed my palm against the wall. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might pass out. A neighbor's door opened down the hall. Someone whispered something I couldn't hear. You're making this worse, Aunt Rachel said. I want to see her, my mom said. Just let me see her. There was a pause. I held my breath without realizing it. No, my aunt said. The word landed solid. Final. My mom laughed, sharp and brittle. A car door slammed outside. Footsteps. Linda, a man's voice said. Calm. Official. Mark. My knees went weak with relief I didn't want to admit. This isn't the place, he said. You need to leave. I'm her mother, my mom said again. Louder. For the hallway. For the neighbors. And right now, Mark said, you're crossing a line. There was shuffling. The sound of a bag hitting the floor. Don't touch me, my mom snapped. We're asking you to go, Mark said. If you don't, we'll escalate. The word escalate carried weight. Silence stretched. Then footsteps moved away from the door. Fast. Angry. The building went quiet again, like it was holding its breath. Aunt Rachel came back inside and locked the door. Her hands were shaking. She leaned against it and closed her eyes for a second. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do. Mark came in a few minutes later. He crouched in front of me like he had the first day. "That wasn't okay," he said. "And we're documenting it." Documenting. Again. "She can't just show up like that," I said. My voice sounded small. "No," he said. "She can't." That night, my mom sent a message. "You humiliated me." I didn't respond. Another came a few minutes later. "You'll regret this." Mark added it to the file. The next morning, he came back with more papers. "There's been a decision," he said. I sat at the table. The same one where I'd eaten spaghetti and done homework and learned new words for old things. "The placement is being extended long-term," he said. "Your mom will have limited supervised contact, if any." I stared at the table chip. The little triangle. "She's furious," he added. "But this isn't about her feelings." It felt strange to hear that said out loud. Later that day, I watched my aunt put the folder into a cabinet and lock it. "Do you want the key?" she asked. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I just want it closed." Time started moving differently after that. Not faster, just steadier, like it wasn't waiting on her anymore. The reviews still happened. The paperwork still piled up, but the urgency drained out of the room. My mom stopped calling every day. Then every week. The messages thinned out, sharper when they came. One afternoon, Mark sat across from us with the full file open. Not just the clipped packet. The whole thing. The folder was thicker than I expected. Tabs stuck out the side like bookmarks. "This is everything," he said. "School records, notes, statements, call logs." He turned a few pages so I could see without forcing me to read. Dates. Times. Boxes checked. My life flattened into paper. "She keeps saying she didn't know," he said. "That she thought you were fine." He tapped a page. "This says otherwise." He didn't sound angry. He sounded finished. My aunt asked what would happen next. "There will be a final determination," Mark said. "But realistically, this doesn't change much from here." "I have Tade." "What about her?" my aunt asked. Mark closed the folder. "She can contest it," he said. "But the record is clear." Clear was the word my mom hated most. That night, my mom sent an email addressed to everyone. Me, my aunt, Mark, someone CC'd I didn't recognize. It was long, carefully written. She said she had been overwhelmed. She said she had trusted me because I was mature. She said she had never meant harm. Near the end, she wrote. I read it twice. Then I handed the phone to my aunt. "I don't want to answer," I said. She nodded. "You don't have to." That was the moment I realized something important. Silence wasn't something she could take from me anymore. A week later, there was another meeting. This one was quieter. No raised voices. No surprise appearances. Mark explained the final terms. Long-term placement with my aunt. Limited supervised contact only if certain conditions were met. No drop-ins. No demands. No pressure. "She's angry," he said, "but she understands." I didn't ask how he knew. After the meeting, my aunt took me out for ice cream. I dropped mine on the sidewalk before I took a bite. It splattered across the concrete. I stared at it, embarrassed, until my aunt laughed softly. "We'll get another," she said. It felt small. Normal. That night, I found the old backpack in the closet. The one I'd packed twice. I emptied it out. Clothes that didn't fit anymore. A school picture with my hair uneven. At the bottom, folded tight, was the $5 bill. I hadn't spent it. I don't know why. I smoothed it out on the bed. I thought about the counter. The burn mark. The way she slid it toward me like a solution. I put the bill back in the backpack. Then I zipped it shut and slid it under the bed. I didn't need it where I could see it anymore. A few days later, Mark stopped by one last time. "This is it," he said. "For now. I have say num." He stood up and hesitated. "You did the right thing," he added. I didn't answer. Right and wrong still felt too big. But, as the door closed behind him, the apartment didn't feel bigger anymore. It felt contained. Like it finally fit. The message came years later. I was 30 by then, sitting at my desk at the clinic, scrolling through appointment reminders between patients. The air smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. Her name appeared on my phone like it hadn't aged at all. Mom, I hadn't blocked the number. Not because I wanted to hear from her. I just never felt the urgency to erase it. The message was short. I'm in town. We should talk. No apology. No question. I stared at the screen until it went dark. That night, I drove home in silence. No radio. Just the hum of tires and the tick of the turn signal. Aunt Rachel was on the couch when I walked in, reading with her glasses perched low on her nose. She texted. I said. She didn't ask who. She always does, she said softly. I sat beside her and stared at the wall. The same wall I'd pressed my palm against years ago while listening through it. She wants to meet, I added. Aunt Rachel closed her book. What do you want? She asked. I thought about the folder in the locked cabinet. The $5 bill under the bed that had moved apartments with me without ever coming out. I don't know, I said. And for the first time, that answer didn't feel safe. It felt unfinished. The next day, another message came. I've been thinking a lot. I know things got blown out of proportion. There it was. Same language, same deflection, same refusal to say the thing that mattered. I forwarded the message to myself and put my phone down. Later that week, I met with a therapist for the first time in my life. She didn't tell me what to do. She asked what I remembered. I told her about the counter, the burn mark, the $5 bill folded thin. I told her about the airport, the way people had looked at my mom, the way she'd looked at me. What do you want now? The therapist asked. I surprised myself with how fast the answer came. I want quiet, I said. My mom sent one more message. I deserve to explain myself. I read it once. Then I opened my settings. Block contact. The phone buzzed once, like it disagreed. Then, it was silent. That night, I slept without dreaming for the first time in weeks. Blocking her didn't erase her. It just stopped the noise. Weeks passed, then months. The quiet held. I settled into a life that didn't feel like it was bracing for impact all the time. Work, home, groceries, dishes, sleep. Normal things that used to feel temporary started to stick. One afternoon, Aunt Rachel called me into the living room. There's something I should have shown you earlier, she said. She held an envelope. My name written in my mom's handwriting, sharp, familiar. It came a while ago, she added. I didn't know if you were ready. I stared at it longer than I meant to. The paper was creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. I think I am now, I said. She handed it to me and left the room. I sat on the couch and turned the envelope over once. Then again, I didn't open it right away. When I did, there was no apology inside. Just explanations. She wrote about stress, about money, about needing space, about trusting me because I was mature. That sentence again. Near the end, she wrote that she forgave me for cutting her off. I laughed once. Short, sharp. It surprised me. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Then, I walked to the kitchen and placed it in the trash. I didn't shred it. I didn't burn it. I didn't dramatize it. I just let it go. That night, I pulled the old backpack out from under the bed. The zipper stuck for a second, then gave. Inside was the $5 bill, faded, soft from being folded so many times. I held it between my fingers and remembered how heavy it had felt in my pocket when it was all I had. I walked to my desk and opened a drawer. Inside were documents, copies I'd kept without realizing why. School records, placement papers, the final determination letter, proof. I placed the $5 bill on top of them. Then I closed the drawer. I didn't need to destroy it. I just needed to know where it belonged. A few days later, I ran into my mom's name again. Not on my phone, not in my inbox. In a conversation, a coworker mentioned her casually. Said she'd met someone with the same last name at a conference. My chest tightened out of habit. then loosened. "That's my mother," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. "Oh," my coworker said. "Do you talk much?" "No," I said. "We don't." And that was it. No explanation, no justification. That was the line. I used to think closure was loud. A conversation, a confession, someone finally admitting they were wrong. That isn't how it happened. It happened quietly, on a Sunday afternoon, when I was cleaning out a drawer I hadn't opened in years. Receipts, old chargers, pens that didn't work. At the back, under a stack of folded papers, was the envelope with my mom's handwriting. I hadn't thrown it out after all. I held it for a second. The paper felt thinner than I remembered. I walked to the kitchen trash can and dropped it in. This time, I didn't hesitate. I didn't look back. Later, I drove to Aunt Rachel's house. She was in the backyard, trimming plants that didn't really need trimming. We sat at the patio table with iced tea sweating onto the glass. "She try again?" she asked. "No," I said. "And if she does, she won't get through." My aunt nodded. No follow-up. No advice. Just acceptance. That night, I lay in bed listening to the normal sounds of the house. Pipes, wind, a car passing somewhere far away. I thought about the airport, the kitchen counter, the $5 bill. I thought about how long I'd believed my job was to endure, to be mature, to make it work. My mom went on vacation and left me with $5. When she came back, I was gone. Not missing, gone. Because someone finally wrote down what happened. Because adults took it seriously. Because I stopped protecting the story that hurt me. The next morning, I woke up early like I always do. I made coffee. I checked my phone. No messages. I opened the drawer at my desk. The documents were still there. The proof, the record. I didn't need to read them. I closed the drawer and went on with my day. The door stayed closed. And this time, it was my choice.